try and get our time. So first thing, tourism revenue preservation fund. Bill, the floor is yours. Want to go through your stuff first, and then
No, I don't mind. Is that me up in the front?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize the item. Yeah, sure. How do I can't plug in. Can I?
What do you want to go through your memo?
Well, I can go through the memo. I just want to show something up on the screen. You need a USB drive.
What do you want to show?
This thing. Well, why don't I do this? Why don't I just go through the memo, and if
Think we
anybody
can just
needs
do
this,
this?
we're worried about. Okay. Are you
Well,
running?
Kyle, you can take me first if you want, while Bill's setting himself up.
He should be good.
So you're not problematic for what's going on, right? There we go. So everybody should have the memo. There is a more recent update with a schedule in the back, and actually there was a comment on the site study, and I changed it to reflect a pending site study and not the fact that we had sites. This was, I did a longer presentation before. I'm just going to stick to the items in the memo. The other presentation was broader. There's really two key issues for economic development. There are far more issues for economic development than these two key ones, but the memo is trying to address both of those. As we're funding the wastewater project, we're also trying to increase the commercial tax levy to reduce the burden on residential taxpayers. So, you know, as you go through the wastewater project, you need to use DIF and other things from economic development. But the secondary benefit is reducing the burden on residential taxpayers. So if you can accomplish both of those through growth, then in the future, as we go after other items, there's less of a burden on the taxpayers. So phase one, commercial area town, we're very fortunate that that's phase one. It's about $162 million worth of work in phase one. So that is the blue area. And also going up West Yarmouth Road up to 99 Buck Island Road. That line that goes straight up to the top, that's where the treatment plant is going to be. So the DIF district will be commensurate with this. In a DIF district, there are two types of district. There is an investment revenue district, or IRD, and a development district, which is DD. The IRD is the one you collect money from. The development district is where you spend it. They can be synonymous in the same place. In this case, what we're going to do is the blue is the IRD and DD. And then when those lines go up, both from Shore Drive and also up West Yarmouth Road, those will be DDs. That is, we don't need to collect revenue from those, and it's unlikely we'll get a lot of revenue from those runs. They could see you coming up, and there's a force main there. So the key is you're setting the increment at one point in time from which new growth is applied to the infrastructure. So the second issue, commercial levy increase. There's been a slow decline of commercial levy. Now I know people go back 30 years to the heyday and things like that. That's true, but there is a slow decline of the levy from 10.14%, I think, to down to, you can see it right there. Commercial alone is 5.45, industrial is 0.44, personal property 2.84. So residential is 91%, greater than 91% of the levy in 2022. Yes, so in that regard, this decline is somewhat caused by the lack of wastewater. If you talk to some of the property owners, they're waiting, you know, and they're also spending a lot of money. You talk to the health director on continuing to keep upgraded their systems. So we want to catch this investment in a wastewater investment. Basically, hopefully we'll start that line upward. That's a red line, the commercial. And by virtue of that, it's not that the tax levy goes down. The residential tax levy is probably a function of the increase in residential property values. Some of that is a lot of properties are being used. I think it was almost 800 or more than 800 for rental properties, seasonal rental properties, almost investment property. those properties coming out of the housing market sort of increases competition, which increases values. So there's a secondary issue there. But plain and simple, the more the commercial grows, hopefully the residential, gets reduced. So without wastewater, there's not a lot of opportunity to change mix, because if you remember, it's predominantly the commercial is in phase one.
So.
Sure, go ahead.
Just clarify, and I obviously didn't read the minutes from before, but this proposal is to find a source to fund the wastewater treatment plant up on Buck Island, and does it contemplate any secondary wastewater treatment?
No, it's that blue area is the collection system for phase one plus Buck Island. And then there are 6 phases?
Because I say that in the short term, because there was a property here that I worked on, and the town of Easton actually successfully did a public-private partnership where the private developer actually built the wastewater system.
Right.
And then got an income, got a portion to the town. It was an interim fix. But what it does is starts the attraction.
Yeah,
So I hate to see that not considered as an option, as a short term.
right. I mean, the Easton project was a handful of developments. There was an affordable housing project and a few commercial projects. It wasn't of the magnitude of this thing.
No, I know. So
Yeah.
this would be.
So
Well, it was the villages. So they decide, but it was a catalyst to attract other development to the towns because of, that was a pilot, it was a catalyst.
right.
So I do want to put that out there for the.
No, the privatizing, it works well in those circumstances. I mean, if you sort of in villages create the systems based on a new growth. So I've seen projects like 40R projects where you'll do a sewer upgrades with a MassWorks grant, but it is we did that in Amesbury and an intersection upgrade. And by virtue of that, we fixed some of the things that we needed to get fixed at the same time we were doing it for the 40R, the 240 units. So
Bill, just a quick question. That main spine, that pipe, is it going to be built to accommodate future growth? Of the
Yes,
other side?
yeah. And so is the plant. There's 2 phases to the plant, though. By the time they reach, I think, phase 4, they need to kick into a second phase in the plant. I think it's phase 4.
Okay.
So our goal is to get the commercial phase, and again, we're fortunate because the commercial phase is the one that's the beginning of this. I mean, if you could imagine trying to build a 70 million or so plant off of a residential phase, it's just not going to kickstart it. So in that regard, economic development is crucial to make sure that we have the revenue stream to do this, plus also, as I indicated, to sort of change that. So wastewater is going to change that pattern, but only if there's economic development to do that. So timing both of them at the same time is crucial in terms of how economic development was forward. And the difficulty in this project, so other projects I've worked on are traffic. You can go build the asset, plan the asset, get commitments as the traffic is being planned, because you don't need the sewer, the traffic right away. So in projects, we've been planning and funding the traffic at the same time the developers moving forward. This is a little bit different. If that sewer line isn't going down the street, nobody's going to go out there and commit to architectural plans and all that detail. So the difficulty in that is you really, as a developer, need to wait till you see commitments on the sewer before you actually can move forward. If this were traffic or other types of improvements, you could probably move forward without those things. I mean, with those things moving forward at the same time, but not in place. So sewer is one of those things where you turn a critical path into almost linear. So this is a typical sort of investment cycle, and this sort of helps solve both of those issues. So this is an investment cycle that is in the DIFT guidelines, but a little bit different because the DIFT guidelines are looking for some of the things in the green boxes but not all of them. They're usually funding infrastructure. So private economic development, it's like, who's on first, the chicken or the egg type of thing. So the wastewater investment creates economic development, which creates infrastructure revenue for the infrastructure. If mass works, betterments, user fees, all of those are sort of on the table. But the other outfall for private economic development is better goods and services, tax-based diversity, better jobs, year-round economy. So those are some of the things we're looking at. Go ahead.
Anybody bite on the opportunity zones?
No.
Irish Village?
Do they actually bite on?
I believe that was an opportunity zone.
At least it was when they were.
The opportunity zone's all the way down 28. I mean, that it's only a few years left, but still, I think again.
You're talking about the EOA or the ETA or the
The
OZ?
economic opportunities in the federal
Okay.
government, the capital gain control.
Oh, okay, all right.
There might be a market out there, but I'm assuming that whoever we put out an RFP is going to put in the whole panoply of opportunity.
Yeah, I mean,
Funding options.
I didn't put TIF there because it doesn't really generate revenue, but if you have a key player that's,
That's,
yeah, so the project that done before, like it leveraged a hotel when the hotel wasn't going to move forward. They had 1.2 million in costs, site cost. We 800,000 over 10 years. So in tax reduction, so they moved ahead. So that where we have site constraints, where we have a developer, I mean, the great thing about incentives are they're not a right, they're a privilege. So you can choose your development teams by basically saying warehousing, no, we're not happy about you. This use, we're happy about you, so by virtue of the criteria I've sort of outlined in here, you help choose your incentives, but incentives like that they lead to the investment, but they don't lead to the revenue.
And just, so you know, opportunity zone doesn't include West Yarmouth, it's just South Yarmouth. It's not all of 28, so it's only like half of phase one, but it's half of phase one, so.
But we
But
have,
also the benefits of opportunity zone are dwindling as time goes on, so it's not as powerful of a tool as it once was.
right, in 2026, who knows what the government might do. Sending it.
so there are three components to what's in your memorandum: economic analysis support, grant applications, DIF, other studies such as betterments while guiding the redevelopment in a manner satisfied both sides, short-term and long-term. So one of the things, and Kyle and I working with the people at the county and the EDA, they keep on coming up with prove us to us that you're going to have growth. So EDA is particularly, pointed on that issue. Mass works, you can do a few studies and get around it. You always don't have to have a project. You just have to show that something can happen sometimes. So
Well, MassWorks needs you to have a job.
Yeah, job creation. So you can do a study.
It's not necessarily housing. They usually reserve the.
They love
rights.
housing though.
They love housing, but they love them in gateway cities.
Yeah,
That's my
well, I mean,
experience.
if you do a 40R, it's like an automatic path to a mass
Yeah,
works.
but that's not gonna get us to our.
No, they won't.
No.
The goal.
No, but if you did from this perspective, what we're trying to do is get the analysis so that we have the supporting documentation to do grants, betterments, to determine what, and the diff. Because the first phase of the diff is setting up the IRD, that is locking up the growth in a certain district. The second phase of the diff would be next year, which would be the development program, where you have to determine what the revenue is. So without a sort of an analysis on the economic development, you really can't determine the revenue. So that's what this is about, is supporting all the other steps. So development districts. So from the next step is a growth. So in terms of the diff. So what the first thing did is gave you the information to be able to do the second thing. So a diff is basically means by which you can capture growth above the increment that you set. So in January 1, we're setting the increment on all the parcels, and that'll occur at town meeting. After you do that, then you do a development plan and you determine what your revenue is and what your expenses are to create the development district. So diff is 40Q. There's another way to do it. You can create districts, but they are surcharge districts, which is they charge an additional surcharge for the like a bid for the wastewater asset. But since we're already doing betterments, we don't want to do that. So this is a project, and we use these kind of things, basically diff, TIF, and everything in MassWorks. And this is the capital program for that development. So each of those intersections in those areas represent a capital program. I know you can't see the spreadsheets, but they are phase 1, 2, 3, and that's what we're trying to align with the grant help, is to align both the capital and the diff help with the revenue stream. Go ahead.
The hotel, office, retail, are these already identified?
No, these are in Amesbury. I'm sorry. It's a different
Oh,
project.
Amesbury.
It's that project. Yeah.
No, okay, so with that being said, did they already have those projects identified before you went out?
Yeah, we have a commitment under our TIF before we went to the diff. So in fact, we slid in a condition that in our TIF, we gave them for the Atlantic Center, which is now Maples Crossing. We basically said that if we don't get the MassWorks grants, then you lose your TIF, and we move that over to the diff. It's basically the same thing. You either take the revenue and put it into a bond, or you take the revenue, or you don't give them a tax cut, which helped because a developer then went out and did more, bigger parties and, other things to move it along. So.
And did the town do any takings?
No, we didn't have to do anything. I didn't put any of that in the TIF or the diff, because it's too complicated. We had the developer buy everything. So before we signed it. Cali, Global Properties. Yeah, unfortunately, we were good to go. The entire intersection is built now. We changed an interchange. It's done, except they got stuck in the pandemic. So yeah, they had the hotel, everybody lined up. So I apologize for this in terms of its size. I'll try to get it up there in size, but this is sources and uses, which is basically the development program. So you can see the diff is the first column, and all the preliminary stuff, engineering and everything else, is cash out of the diff. And then you go across as MassWorks, Complete Streets, MPO, Enterprise Fund, things like that. And what happens here is the diff is funding the initial part. It's unlikely here because we don't have that kind of growth, I think, to pick up that kind of price tag. So MassWorks, though, kicks in as you get to construction, because they want to see some plans. So you can see as you go down, you start picking up columns. So, a lot of people have done some good work on a whole bunch of different funding sources. So in our case, there's a WIF and other funding sources going across, that is allocation of hotel, motel tax and other things that will replace some of the things you see there. I don't think we have Complete Streets, but we will be putting an MPO in there. So when we look at, and we don't have it right now. Sorry, I have to make this thing smaller again. I'll show you one of the issues we're going to be facing in the future. So
your
go ahead.
sheet wasn't exhaustive. I mean, it's just a sample, right? So that's just.
Yeah, it's all you need to do for the diff. You don't need a full budget. That's actually more than what you would do for a diff, sources and uses spreadsheet. But DOT is going to do a part of 28. We need to file for the tip to do the rest of it, because the tip shortest time frame is about 5-year turnaround. So we'll hopefully be filing for the tip to pick up the DOT work. So as the sewer project is done, if you look at that, then something will kick in under the MPO category, which is tip, to pick up a scope item, which will be the surface work for the rest of 28. So what this does is it tells you both, almost X, Y, Z axis. It tells you the funding source. It tells you what you're funding. And again, one of the keys to being this as specific, some grants will fund the design, some grants will fund the construction. So you line them up, those columns, based on that availability. So the great thing about a diff, it's a lot more liquid. You can spend it on a lot of different things. So the best way to use it is a gap in between grants and other sources. So this was a TIF for that Maples Crossing the financing plan. We had a TIF for 4.25 million. The diff was 1.9 million, and we had 2 grants, one more after this one for 4.5 million. So that combination did all the offsite work for the project, and that's what we want to do. So here are some of the schedules, and we'll be putting it on RP in March, and then April for the market study. And then some of the things you would do is just the due diligence between the contractor and the town to collect every conceivable study and get them access to it. You're selecting the consultant, sort of introductions with CDC and businesses. So there'll be a series of sort of, what are you up to? What are the projects? Socioeconomic data. And there's a lot of data out there, obviously the government has some, but what you typically use for this is Esri collects analytics, which is sort of cell phone and other data, and they process it by geography. So when you're doing a market study, Esri is the people who make the GIS systems. You can contact them and say, give me a circle around this site. What's the population? What's the income? What's the commuting patterns? So typically you want to get that specific.
So that being said, the comprehensive economic development study that
Feds, yeah.
the commission did has, I know we collected, I was on that one of the working groups, a lot of data. So I guess the question is, how valid is that data? Is there any part of that data that we could incorporate into this ahead of time, actually just to refine the RFP?
Well, that's part, yeah, you're right. So that market study reports collect, so we would collect all that and provide it to the consultant, but a SEDS document is typically going to use the federal government data because they like, feds are freaks about verifiable data, their census and things like that.
But are we gonna get more granular when it comes to Massachusetts?
Yeah, well, you get more granular with Esri data. I did a market analysis for fashion retail in Amesbury, and we basically use the typical fashion retail circle. I think it's about 20 miles. And we got all the data inside of a 20-mile circle. So you got to do it by census tract. Esri can do it by circles. So, I mean, our market data is going to be hopefully more detailed than the SEDS and everybody else. It has to be. So if you were to choose a certain market, you would figure out what your labor force inside that market area to make sure you have jobs for it. So give you an example, the fashion retail, we were looking to change the zoning to fashion retail with a developer. And we said, prove that you have a project. So then we did a market study with them and proved it was viable, even though we were just on the other side of the state line. So big zoning projects like that, we do a market and a fiscal impact analysis to make sure that A, it's going to happen, and B, it's not going to cost us more money after it happens. So in this case, our market study will use more detailed data. Some of the ones I've looked at, some of them use Esri. So they're not going to come in and use the last census and say, good luck with that. They're going to have to use something more specific. And then development environment, that's some of that is in the SEDS, and that's easily, determined. The market analysis itself, what type of uses would you want? And so our criteria would be based on some of the things you want in there. And I think as we do this, we want to have the committee take a look at what do you want? You have a mission statement and sort of what is the purpose of this group. In that are some of the things that are on page 2 in terms of diversify the tax base and everything else.
Mhm.
So what else would you want to add to this? This is your filter for incentives. So when I've done TIFs before, we don't give a person or a business a TIF until they pass these kind of tests. So that's why warehousing is not going to get a TIF. The job creation isn't there, the value per square foot's there, the traffic is, difficult. So it allows you to go through land uses and say, small strip mall stuff and stuff like that isn't going to get a TIF. It's not going to create enough jobs and things like that. And by virtue of using this kind of test, you pass the test of EDIP at the EACC in terms of, making sure that you're creating the jobs, and same thing with the diff. So,
And I think we would probably want to consider how we handle startups or at least new companies. Because there is clearly a need to incentivize, right? Entrepreneurs, and yet
Right.
you gotta balance it against the risk of giving a tip. And generally,
Right.
the ACC won't, except like every once in a while, they'll fund a startup.
Mhm.
But I think that's his decision for on the local level.
we were in, I brought in 2 hotels to them. 1 year they loved it, and the next year they hated it. I don't know what
Yeah.
hospitality.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
don't mean to ask, because I'm not familiar with this, where I used to work, we already had a TIF in place.
Yeah.
So what is the process to,
well, we won't be doing one until after all this is done. Then it's a matter of as development comes forward. And let's say you have a site that's difficult. So the site that I showed you, this thing was up on the top of a hill and it had about 1.4 million, no, $1.6 million in additional costs. So we basically wrote a TIF to write down or amortize those costs over 20 years. So our TIFs were based solely on, can you do this without our money? It's the if not for or the but for clause in the
right,
TIF.
but is it a quick process?
No.
That's what I wanted to know. Is it a
Well-
lengthy process to implement?
It's not too bad.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
It doesn't have to be. Well, the EACC meets quarterly, so that's sort of a timing issue. So the EACC is the Massachusetts
Exactly.
or Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development
Yep.
that authorizes any local TIF. However, maybe you're not familiar. They have a new general counsel and every TIF needs to go through him. So I'm happy. So what the council, you haven't got counsel yet, but I can get my hands on vetted TIF agreements that.
Oh,
we can
good.
all- Yeah, because
They weren't too, I mean, they were
They're
discerning,
gonna
but
be
they
stuck.
weren't, yeah.
well, that's the new word. So basically the town vets a project and
Right.
confirms whether or not how many jobs you can create, how much is that total investment, how much can the town give up for a tax base?
Right.
And TIFs are generally, they have to be approved at town meeting.
Right, but I mean, you can go
So-
in the EACC with a condition to go to town meeting
Yeah.
afterwards.
Okay, that's
Towns
what my
usually do
question
that. Yeah, but it
was,
goes-
is
and it
you could
goes to
have a
committee.
developer you want to work with, but if it's gonna take, 10 months to get a TIF in place, then.
Well, I mean,
That's what I'm
what you do is you court them and then you basically say, okay, go through your development process. And as we're doing that, we negotiate the TIF. And sometimes you're not finishing your spreadsheet until they come out of the planning board and the county because they're saying this is killing me or it's not killing me. And you try to equate your TIF to some of their costs.
But none of these projects have to go to the commission.
No, not TIF.
And no, along the
On
corridor.
the corridor.
Yeah, you
What's
don't
that?
know.
Why we
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know yet.
Have to go to the commission.
Why?
If it's over 10,000 square feet, you don't have.
What's
I
that?
thought we got the exemption.
We have a growth incentive zone.
Yeah.
Which does allow 35 hotel properties along Route 28. A change in the threshold for DRI, but it's not all along.
Oh, and then it's a killer. I'm sorry, I work
We all
for this,
know that.
I know, so. Okay,
Keep
maybe
going.
we should talk
So
about that.
competitive assessment, that basically says if we are choosing one type of land use, is it oversaturated somewhere else, and are we making a mistake? So when we're in Salem, we had like 8 million square feet of retail, and so Methuen's competitive assessment shouldn't include retail, that type of thing. So strategic sites would be, as you go through, and it's more of a tabular exercise than it is site planning. You're basically going through and say, what are some of the site costs? Is this going to work for the site? And things like that. And the completion of the report is somewhere out in the fall. I'd like to shorten this in the event that some of this goes to a fall town meeting, if I shorten up the diff timeline. So we may mix and match the sequence to pull out, and it relates to the grants, and escalate some of the studies. So this is the diff program. The top part is the first phase. So I'm writing that right now, and Andy and Kyle and others have been great in getting all that stuff together for that document. Same thing, we do the RFP, report the reports, select the consultant. And the key to this, it goes back to really the hardest part of these things is building that spreadsheet, which is sources and uses to time, money with projects, because that's what the development program is. It's essentially timing the money with the timing of the project. So you can see what is your investment budget, what do you need to spend, your sequencing, your wastewater financing program. So if we have 5 other sources of revenue, what does the diff have to earn? Because diff is usually a gap. It is not the, if you have MassWorks and you think we can make, if we can make 4 million, that's all we have. The diff is the one that we would go up and down in percentage to try to fill that gap. So that's why it's important to sort of put everything together in the whole budget. So we have a complete document outreach and town meeting for next year. And that's the second phase of the diff. Now, this one is a little bit unique. Kyle has already put together a list of all the grants. What we're going to have somebody do is go through those and align them with both timing and criteria. Which ones can be spent on what? Where are we soft on our information? This consultant might end up talking to this consultant and say, can you get more information on job creation so we can fill out grant X? So it's an iterative process between this one and the other one. And we just have to sequence them, and we may just combine those 2 scopes into the market analysis. But it's odd to have a market study person also have grant capability. So once we put this together, then it's a matter of seeing, okay, I'll give you an example. In this one, we'll have to apply for a MassWorks grant. I'm probably doing the one-stop portal for that next week. And we apply for a MassWorks grant, which requires information we don't have. So we have to basically get information together to at least get through the first one. And the first one hopefully will be on top of the DOT work. And the advantage there is MassWorks seems to like picking up some connections to DOT projects. So the streetscape and all those things that are there that DOT is doing, the MassWorks grant we can claim is going to be part of that section of the corridor and the growth in that section. So it's not going to be the whole thing. So again, the hard part is how do we apply for a grant before we get funding for the entire project? The treatment plant and everything else. In this case, what we would do is say, we're doing that part of the collection system timed with very detailed plans that DOT has. So it has a lot more favorability in terms of a project, given we don't have the economic analysis to show all the job creation. But we can try to put some of that together to get the first one. The next, hopefully the EDA thing we'll get back to, but they seem to want a lot of the same things that are in the market study. So that's really our hang up, is this kind of information.
So Is the only growth that you're anticipating at hotels?
No. No, we want, it goes back to the criterion here in terms of year round. You might want medical office and other things to create that mix. So the issue would be, I'll give you an example, if you have 50 employees in a office building, they're here through the winter. And maybe some of the restaurants are staying open later because you have those 50 employees on the corridor. So you want to do the mix so you can get more of a year-round land uses so that you are more defensible against the loss of disposable income, pandemics, and things like
All
that.
right, and
Yeah.
higher wages.
Yeah, higher wages.
So, and another strategy is also, if you know what other grants are there that like innovation grants that are out there that attract businesses. So for example, we just got a Seaport Economic Council grant, does support communities that promote maritime jobs. So, you know, there I was working with the company in Barnstable that they do radar and they were looking to expand. That was a while ago, but you know, we could knock on their door, but that would be somebody who would be, again, likely to get some sort of mass development funding and innovation grants.
Right.
So anyway, I just want to put it out there that, yes, and sorry, I just like to figure, you know, I learned a lot before, so I hate to let it go, but you know, you've got to plug all the possible,
Right.
and come at it from a totally different perspective in order to see who you can attract.
Right. There's a,
And I'm all for poaching businesses from Barnstable.
So are we all.
still on the whole camera thing.
That's the thing, it's the big and good thing.
Yes. No, we used to say in the North Shore, we go to chamber meetings to talk about who we're going to steal from the other. Did you know that company's coming to me now? You know, that type of stuff. Yeah. So the market study is a crucial component of this, and we'll try to move some of the things up to answer the grants. That's why typically if we weren't sort of, you know, rushed like this, then we let the market study go, then everything else, you know, and just doing it in a sequence. But really that 2023 is when we will be going for funding for wastewater. So we want to be able to go into that and say, here are 3 or 4 grant opportunities that are funding this program. And to get that, you need that kind of data. I don't know if there's anything else. That's it. But that, as you were saying earlier, Maria, that right there is what you're talking about. And then there's a whole bunch of other grants, it's sort of mixing everything together to create a budget. And again, sewer is tough because that program, I received commitments from developers because we basically said we will build the offsite. And they could plan, fund, finance everything because it's just in traffic infrastructure. It's going to happen eventually. But we had all the funding to show it would happen. The key is people aren't going to make commitments until they know they can make a connection. So we're basically creating the middle space with market study.
So I know your staff's very busy, but has anyone from the town sat down with anyone from Congressman's office, Senator's office relative to this project becoming part of that infrastructure money that President proposed and Congress passed?
Has the Biden bill finally come out?
Yeah, the infrastructure.
First one.
The first one.
Oh, okay. We did call Sear and we are going to call Keating. I know that they're earmarking some of it. So,
This is obviously one of.
no, I know that.
We qualify for it.
Yep.
We just don't want us to miss the boat.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and some of that is in the EDA.
Yeah, and of the funds that the Massachusetts got for this recovery, they've all been allocated?
They're allocating some of the money out in smaller increments, like 250,000 for this, 100,000 for that. If you look at their list, ARPA money, it's to social service agencies.
Nothing.
Food
for
banks.
quality of life kind of.
No, there's some to DEP for a sewer project in Methuen, but it's going to DEP. It looks like it's going to more agencies. That's what SEER put us on to. But I think the infrastructure bill is tied up with the EDA money. We still need to be able to, they keep on pushing us to the market study. We still need to make a case for that. And the other issue is we can apply for it, but we're not project ready.
Right.
So if we were to go in and say, yeah, we got the funding at town meeting. So it's all going to be conditional as we move forward. So what'll happen is on the schedule is you'll see, we'll go through the RFP process and then bring back a consultant that you would meet. And then, so we want to set aside the $75,000, but until I get a contract, I'm not going to ask for the money.
Yeah.
So
Set
each
it
of these
aside,
components,
so
yeah,
That part's done. So
yeah. It doesn't have a fiscal year. Okay,
No, no.
okay, crosses fiscal years,
process
good,
was good money set aside.
good.
Bill, you have public comment? Tom?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Scott. So what I heard was in the beginning, it's 167 mil for the plant and the line.
Plant is about 70 and the line is the delta of that 162 is what one of the cost estimates I saw for both.
And to our town planner's point that Darrageville should take advantage of the opportunity zone, so we didn't have one. So, 4 months, you'll be here 10 years, so that's great.
What's that?
I said in 4 months, you'll have your 10-year anniversary, so thank you for sticking around.
Time flies.
When you're having fun. Bill, anything else to finish up?
Yeah, I'm all done. I'm sorry. I want to
No,
give you,
I'm sorry. Appreciate it.
Just one question. Do you think that 75 is enough money?
if I come back with consultants saying more, then I'll come back and see what I can, need to get right now. I think it's enough. I broke it down and I talked to a few consultants in the market analysis and they range from 30 to 38,000. I've got 45 because some of the ranges they indicated were in smaller communities. The diff, all I need is somebody to run some numbers. That actually might go down. I could probably do that for 15 or 18.
So why would you ask Mass Development to do that for you?
They don't.
For us?
They won't do that. They won't write the diff for you. No, I wrote
They
a
ran
diff.
the numbers.
No. We did do diffs. They did 4 diffs. They did Amesbury with me, Dedham, Plymouth. I forget the last one. And it was a pilot.
Or Somerset.
No, there were 4 communities as part of a grant. So we all filed a grant requesting assistance to write a diff, and then Mass Development packaged us into writing the guidelines for the state. So, I mean, we could ask them for the money, but well, they're probably going to select the same consultant, Camoin Associates, because they're the ones who wrote the guidelines. So, no, we'll ask them for the money.
Free help.
I just don't want to have them
Excuse me.
sort of throw off the timeline.
Sure.
And then the last one is basically my experience with grant writers and everything else to put that together.
I actually thought that was pretty low.
It is, but it's only one grant. The grant, MassWorks grant is about $6,000 to file with a consultant, $4,000 to sort of put together some of the relationships between grants and the program. The hardest part is, Jeff just got this sort of change from DY to Y in like August. And he's been working, obviously to get the treatment plant design and all that together. So when you retool it, it's been an effort in trying to retool the whole schedule and everything else. So that's what the difficulty has been.
So Dennis is definitely going on their own.
They're gonna do stuff with Harwich.
Really? That was in the paper.
Yeah. I think it's, one of them, I think Harwich is sending flow and providing effluent recharge sites.
Instead of, that was one time for.
Mhm.
Oh,
Bill,
you
thank
can use gray water? I didn't know.
You've never heard that?
No, I
Then
didn't.
you in Florida.
Yeah,
Thanks, so. Thank you, Bill.
yeah, you're welcome.
All right, marketing project proposal. Who's doing that?
Do you want to do it, Bill, or you want?
No, why don't you do it?
All right, this is kind of Bill's idea. It's a good idea. So we have we usually sell a little over 25,000 daily beach parking tags during the summer season. That's run through the DPW. Roby Whitehouse is kind of in charge of that program. So we had the idea in the past, it had been just one single Yarmouth business on the back advertising. So we had the idea to make it more of a community advertisement than just one single business, to try to encourage people who are visiting the Yarmouth beaches to patronize also the Yarmouth businesses nearby. So the idea is on the back, I think I provided a little mock-up. There'd be a little thing with a QR code that gets scanned and it leads you to the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce webpage. We envision in the future that there'd be a website built that shows all the Yarmouth businesses, not just the ones that are chamber members, but as of the, with the quick turnaround, this is kind of the best we can do on short notice. And I think it does provide, most of what we're trying to accomplish. So with that, we're requesting up to $12,000 from unallocated funding, and the cost would cover, $3,250 for the actual printing of the tags. It would be $3,500 for t-shirts and sweatshirts for the DPW staff. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to review the memo, but basically this program would also involve the DPW staff working with the Chamber of Commerce on some sort of, quick pitch, if you will, so that when people are getting their parking tags, they say, if you look on the back here, I'm not a marketing expert, so maybe Mary can fill in the blank a little bit better here, but if you look on the back, here's a QR code that leads you to, where you can live, whatever our slogan is, stay, eat, and play in Yarmouth.
So that being said, there's a free link on the Mass Tourism Office that you can, and it's a free link, the portal, right? Any business can register.
Yeah, we promoted that for well over a year. We work with
Yes,
people on that.
And the problem with that though is
There
it's
are
any
only
business.
there are only
it's
two
not-
businesses on
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
website.
it's open to any business though, so that,
No input.
we're trying to
We
keep
don't
people in
see it as a
Yarmouth,
value.
right?
No, it goes to a Yarmouth site.
It's a page.
Yeah,
It's
for
a
that
page.
I've been on
Oh,
it.
Mary knows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've been on it, but I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was a Yarmouth page.
No, there's a
specific.
Yarmouth, they're just saying there's a Yarmouth page. I mean, again, free stuff.
Yeah, so the business community does know about it. We've been promoting it with Ma and the Cape Cod Chamber for
Mhm.
as long as they've had it.
I think one of the,
I hear you.
one of the advantages by going to chamber website, they're picking up events and all the other things.
That's a
that are
good
in
point.
it. So,
Good
Oh,
point.
yeah, no, I know that. That's pretty true.
and,
All of the events that you guys fund too, so it's
Sure.
kind of a,
So our envision is, and I know I haven't talked to Kyle directly, but each spring we try to do a training for all of our staff, the Route 6 staff, as well as Route 28 staff that operate our visitor center. We kind of have like, hey, this is what's new in Yarmouth this year. These are the new businesses. This is the new events. Here's also what's new on the Cape, because people, when they come here and they're in Yarmouth, they don't look at the town lines. They're on Cape Cod, right? So we want the staff to be well educated about what is happening, not only in Yarmouth, but in the Cape. So we envision, like, maybe we were talking about it this morning, the staff about, maybe we do a brunch and it's just, an hour.
Yep.
And we provide refreshments and we all get together and we're a
I
team.
mean, we've done those information based in the past, and they were pretty good, so.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So that's what we're envisioning. I'd love to know how many staff there are. So maybe Roby, or you let us know.
yeah, I'll
that
have
we can
to
plan
check
out.
with Roby on that.
A question on the t-shirts, sweatshirts, DPW, is that also with the beach staff too, or?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, all that is beat staff, and that basically that investment is saying to the DPW that the investment allows Mary's team to sort of educate ambassadors. That if we were just to say, let's put these tags, the graphics on the back, then you're paying for the parking tag, that's it. But to be able to have some of her people, talk to her, take some time out to, understand how the QR system works, and they should promote it. And some of the things that Mary were talking about, we should give them more money, and whether or not we can work with her on what the t-shirts might say, things like that. So this is an investment, because right now I think the tags are going to print 33,000. So right now you're about, it's a pretty low amount of money to hit 33,000 people. Now, if you're non-redundant, people, maybe it's around 20.
And with that QR code, we'll be able to track exactly how many people went to our website from that QR code. So we'll be able to see how useful it is.
Mhm.
And the other thing is I would love to, if we could, the chamber to give input on the design of the tag and the t-shirts.
Yeah.
Just so that we stay with the same branding. This committee in particular has made an investment in the marketing contract. And I think to continue the brand throughout everything we do is really important to the community. So wherever they go around town, they see the same brand for the town of Yarmouth.
And the other key is we've been talking about, are there recreational or trail sites where you just see the QR code? And it's as much for, residents. It's like, you have that QR code, you call up the phone, you make a reservation for, a restaurant. Eventually, we want to move to something that is targeted right from the QR code to a person's habits or needs, maybe right to a restaurant website or whatever out of the chamber. But
Eventually, we want the QR code to read the person's mind. And
Well,
Yeah.
So I'll say the Cape Cod Chamber
charge a credit card with them.
That's
though.
right.
did this amazing workshop a couple of weeks ago. In fact, Mott facilitated part of it. And it was so interesting. The data just from your phone, we literally tracked a person that left their home in Ohio or Indiana, something like that. You literally could see them traveling across the country. They went to Barnstable, then they went to P-Town, and just by the size of the dot, you can tell how long they stayed where.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the
It,
QR
it,
No,
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 this
no,
is
this was
trackable
trackable
because you have
data.
your location data.
It's
on your
geofencing.
phone.
We're just tracking the.
But
Tracking
the
the.
platform, I'm telling you, the chamber is looking at it right now because what interesting data you could gather from that.
In terms of tracking the QR code, like you were saying earlier, do
Yeah.
you need to create the QR code through a certain software in order to be able to track where it's being
So a
accessed from?
QR code will track that. So it
Even
just
from
needs
one of
to
those
be
free
set up.
software ones?
You don't want to use free, you want to use encrypted. That's what Jen and I were emailing you the other day.
Yeah, I didn't get
And
the
we were
encrypted
hoping,
part.
when we initially spoke, I think you had said Paul would be able to do that, so.
No, I'm not sure. You checked with them already, right?
Friday, you can do that for you in 2 seconds.
No, I know, but originally the town said they were gonna do it internally, so until they tell us.
Yeah, we would own the QR code, so if there's
Yeah,
any
that's fine.
problems with it, we
Right.
could fix it.
But we have a company that can give you an encrypted QR code.
Do you know how much it would cost?
There's not much money for.
And we pay.
Could we include it and add it?
No, we'll just put it
paid
on
out
our
of this?
contract.
Okay, yeah.
We got that town line item.
I'll have to
Probably a couple $100.
Yeah, I was
if
gonna
that.
say the 250 contingency would cover. it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right,
So
sounds
we can
good.
Just pay it under the town contract.
It's the same as a season pass for a beach.
Either way is fine.
Yeah, well, you guys, we'll talk about it after, but.
I mean, the great thing about this is you have 33,000 of these things going out and you got a point of sale
Yep.
for everything at this. And then if we look at recreation and trails, it helps residents as much as anybody else, so.
So while we're at the beach, I have a question. I noticed there's a camera down there. And I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity for Joe Sixpack to know, hey, can I get down to the beach, get a parking spot? Or do I have to wait? Is there any, I don't want to answer right now, but maybe at some future time we can get.
I know in the past that you're not going to be able to have a live camera, but in the past, the Yarmouth Recreation Department has posted when beaches have been full. I know like the town of Dennis has a Twitter page that they do that for. So I know they've done some social media notifications. They have they have a Facebook page, but it's not like linked to a live cam that you
It's
can
not-
like.
It's not live. It's-
So if that's public safety, typically they don't like to do that because if there's an event, if something's happening, they sometimes have to shut off.
Does anyone else see any merit in that?
No, we did in Salem, we have about 15 traffic cameras and they're all on, 5 of them are on YouTube. But the issue is it's to show you traffic, to see if it's congested and whether you should go.
I'm just thinking about a family at the beach wagon, the kids hanging out in the car with balloons and everything else, rafts and. Can I get a parking space or? what-
So we pretty much at the visitor center, we warn them that if it's a beautiful day, you better be there before 9 a.m. You won't get in.
Oh, what we need to do is have I'm sorry we're full, but in the meantime, take your kids to go get an ice cream over here.
Yeah,
But
but
they're
the other
not-
side of it too is, for 30 years, I grew up at down South Shore Drive. Smugglers Beach and Seagull Beach, I know it's not South Shore Drive, those two beaches will fill. There's other beaches on South Shore Drive that you can typically, I mean, July
Parker's
4th,
Direct fills.
right, but
It's the smaller ones.
you know,
South
Middle
Meadow.
Beach and Parker River Beach, all that, you can always get in there, so,
Yeah.
you know.
Or Barnesville does that with their camp. They have cameras
Yeah.
at town landings and programs that you can go on and see a still picture every
Remind you.
minute.
You get
Yeah,
you
that's-
get your car full and you look on your cell phone. This budget.
Right.
Now we're gonna have to one of these other beaches.
No, but you're right. You could probably take a still and feed the still every 5 minutes or whatever.
What's everybody think about the request?
100%, 120%. And it is, like you said, hope it's enough money, but I'm sure Bill will come back and bring it in. And say,
And
Uh,
I'll
this
buy the
one.
T-shirts from the Yarmouth. too.
I'm sure that's their plan, so. You know,
I think we have a couple.
if we have, yeah. if we do.
Unfortunately, the t-shirts won't be made in there.
I just-
Well, then can I get a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the request for $12,000.
Everybody, and you're a voting member?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's right.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. See, this what last week is of
It was because you guys were talking about the marketing.
marketing,
contract.
yeah. That's
Oh,
why,
so you're.
probably she was a
okay.
voting member, yes.
I second the motion.
All in favor? Well, I guess the one question, do we need to determine where the funds are coming from? Or from
Yeah, I'd recommend unallocated.
unallocated? Okay. Do you want to
I'm in here.
amend your,
I will. I would like to make a motion to approve the request for $12,000 to come under the unallocated funds.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And I would just ask if the staff could work with the chamber for the branding process.
Mhm.
That would be great.
Oh, a conditional motion.
That's right. After that.
It wasn't voted on, Bill.
That
so-
means we don't get the money. if we don't-
Well, The second part, we get the t-shirts from the other business,
Yeah.
that was the,
We have so many
That
brands,
is a
you wanna get the
given.
right one.
Oh, my God.
okay,
Which one, what are we using now?
For what? No,
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 It's still within reach.
Oh,
is this Bob?
Did you put that in the? new
Yeah,
one?
this is Robert T.
Is Robert still with us?
I believe he is, yeah.
There he is.
Hey, Robert.
I'm still here.
How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Terrific. Yeah, nice to see you again. Kid. Hey, Kyle, could you put that up that we talked about?
Yeah, you want the,
Yeah, I think it's easier if we have a site plan up there. Okay, so try to do a really quick background. Through the Yarmouth Chamber of Commerce, I was contacted for the front lot with the blue dot is. It's a commercial lot. It's less than an acre. It was actually turned out to be Starbucks that was interested in putting a site there, and they worked hard with the planning board to try to pull something off. It didn't happen. Through that effort, I introduced myself to the plot in the back, which they've owned for about 100 years, and in the family, owned by a 90-year-old woman right now. It's just over an acre. They've never been able, had the desire to put a home on there, even though they thought they were going to do this a long time ago. So we've got two lots that are working difficultly in their own location. The front one's a little small for a commercial. The back one's directly across, even closer to the street, 28, than actually the 99 is. So what I proposed to these two owners, and they both agreed, was why don't you work together, and you'll have about a 2-acre lot. I put the article on for the town meeting, and I've done this all without any charge or any fees or anything, because I think it's for the right thing for the town. Based on what I heard Scott talk tonight, I've heard the selectmen say it, the finance committee, and I believe economic development feels the same way. We need to have more commercial space on, certainly on 28. I'm not looking for it in pure residential areas. So again, both owners are working together. They would like to do something with the site. And I'm coming to economic development, wastewater, which we know we have to provide waste in order for the sewer system to work. And also back to the planning board to get their support. I had the planning board support. But on the night that they had a meeting, there was some neighbors that were not happy. So we ended up putting on for ourselves. So I'm going back to economic development, going back to wastewater, going back to planning to see if I can get these three groups that I think are involved with this type of decision as support. I don't know if there's anything else I need to tell you.
Robert, just a couple things just for clarification for our purposes. The blue dot I'm pretty sure I know how it's zoned, but what is that lot zoned as right now?
That's already commercially zoned.
Charlie, commercially zoned.
Yeah.
The red outline is residentially zoned,
Yes, exactly.
and is that a house just to the south of it, or just to the edge of the picture?
Yes,
Okay.
there's one abutter that would be residential.
What about it as a resident? Okay.
Everybody else would be commercial.
In your request, Robert, is to petition that red zoned lot, which is now residentially zoned, be rezoned as a commercial or mixed use piece of property?
Yes. In the design, and I couldn't control the design, but the more obvious part of the design would be to put something visible on the front lot and use the back lot for buffering and for parking.
For buffering and parking?
That's the plan.
And
So,
where do you envision like curb cuts? Where's the traffic?
Well, the curb cuts, it's less important where I envision the curb cuts because it was really the planning board and the state of 28 that will control that. So I know that there's a difficulty in having a curb cut in the front, which also makes it difficult, I think, for that front parcel. And because it's so close to the light, from my understanding, it's Mass didn't like the idea of another curb cut on that side. But, you know, for different uses, there's going to be different desire for different locations for curb cuts. So I really can't tell you where it would go, but I know the planning board and the state would be involved in that decision.
and Robert, you said that the two property owners are willing to work together. Is that in writing?
Yes. And I sent that in. I don't know if Kyle has it not. I will send it to you. I have a letter from the attorney for the front lot. And he wrote me an email saying that he definitely wants to work with the people in the back. They feel that in the best interest of both parcels to try to join together and sell them.
I guess my one comment, Robert, it's just me speaking, it's not the rest of the committee. But, you know, I certainly would not want to tonight take a vote on that until I just saw that piece of information, because right now, you know, you're asking for our support on a lot that I have no idea whether they're going to work together or not. So that's not that I don't.
I can send it to Kyle right this second, and he can open his email and see it. Why don't just skip it? I'll do it right now.
So are they both conforming lots individually as commercial? In terms of lot area?
No,
They're sized well enough for development.
one's
1
residential.
acre,
No,
1
I
acre
meant,
can be
if
developed.
they're both
Right.
commercial, are they are the appropriate size? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
and both of them were.
They could be
But
two
individual.
separate developments. They don't necessarily have to.
all right.
What is the likelihood of it actually being developed? You know,
Oh, Starbucks wanted it.
Yeah, Starbucks.
well, they
I know. They worked hard. They put several plans in front of the planning boards and tried. So,
Yeah.
So what-
and major retailers already showed significant interest.
I just want to be clear that Robert keeps mentioning the planning board.
Mhm.
These site plans do not go before the planning board. They met locally or with staff,
Mhm.
and we provided some comments. There were some concerns with regards to having to be 100 feet from residential property to where you have your drive-through. And that's where they really have needed a variance, and that was very problematic, obviously, to try and get a variance. But none of this ever goes before the planning board. Any relief they would need would go to the zoning board. of appeals. Just want to be clear.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Was that Kathy?
Yeah, that was Kathy, yes.
Okay, I can't see her, so I can't tell. Did Kathy, what was the biggest problem? Because I'm only, all I heard was that there was a stacking problem, getting enough cars in a line, that type of stuff. And eventually Starbucks lost interest. Is that the way you see it, Kathy, based on your discussions with them?
I think it was the 100 feet from the drive-through components to a residentially zoned area that they could not meet with their design. So they would have needed a variance, and I think that concerned them.
Okay,
Chair, for clarification, what is the specific role here of this committee with respect to this request?
You're being asked to provide a letter of support for the citizens petition that's being considered.
exactly. Well, again, I think
There is
it's,
support for rezoning of that piece of property. That's,
I just, by the way, I just sent that email that I got from the attorney to Kyle.
He has a citizen's petition, is that
Correct.
correct?
That's right.
That's what I
That's
just
correct.
wanted to
So
clear.
our next meeting is next week?
yes,
And
no,
I-
it's true, it's not
It's in 2
till.
weeks?
TBD.
Yeah, next
So
week's
So
select.
would there
so
be enough time for a letter of support to be able to have some, I personally would like to actually read the letters for myself. And I don't want to just do it on a.
Mhm.
I think your point, the chairman's point is very well taken. So Robert, I don't know you, but I look forward to meeting you and I'm pleased that the prospect of this happening and your level of enthusiasm, and I just need a little bit more information for it before.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I understand. I think actually based on even Scott's information that provided tonight, that expanding uses for the sewer line that's coming and expanding commercial real estate so we can get that residential people a little bit of relief is a strong selectman goal for the town and for economic development, et cetera. Wastewater. I mean,
It's a goal of
this
ours.
is what I think we're supposed to be doing is growing our commercial base off of 28.
I don't know if you need a motion to table this, but I think it's your chair
Yeah,
discretion.
we don't need a motion to table it.
Yeah, so you just want me to send out the stuff that Robert sent via
Yeah,
email
please.
and we'll put it on a future agenda?
Robert, we're gonna pick this up at our next meeting.
Excellent.
We're gonna
We
have
got
them,
time. I understand, Ken. We got time.
so, yeah.
And maybe I can get in front of wastewater and I can give you some results from their opinions and planning before I
That'd be
get
great.
back, if I can. I'll try. I have asked all three of them for support, all three of you, the economic development, wastewater, and planning.
We look forward to talking to you in the future, Robert.
I just say, with 100 years of these lots sitting there, we haven't gone anywhere fast, that's for sure. I know they've tried.
Well, we're not trying to,
Getting
we're not trying to make it a snail's pace here, but we
Yeah,
just
I get
want to do our due diligence, that's all.
Yeah, I get it. I appreciate the help and the opportunity.
So I think, Robert, it would be important for you to be prepared to discuss the uses by right and other uses that could be used on that. Well, it's good to talk about Starbucks and the possibility that they could come back, but once it's zoned for that zoning district, it's whatever's in the table. So I think
Exactly. Yeah,
that's gonna be some of the questions you're gonna face. And the DOT stuff is you can't come out at the stack.
Right.
So there's gonna be a whole length of that frontage on that side street. They're not gonna let you come in and out of for a curb cut. So those are the kind of things that lend itself to needing the back lot, but
exactly. Oh, we could look at that lot for the rest of our lives. I agree. I mean, it's been there
Yeah.
for, like I said, 100 years. They've tried several times. Many real estate companies have been on that thing. Atlantic, I mean, I've seen signs on there for the last 10 years.
Yeah, me too.
And nobody's ever made it past development, the opportunity to build it.
Well, thank you, Robert.
Thank
Good
you
to
all.
see you. Good to
Yeah,
see
nice
you
to
again.
see you again. Take care.
Review of the past meetings.
I don't think I gave you, oh, wait, so we still have the minutes from
The 23rd.
January 25th, but I didn't give you the one for 15 yet.
Motion to approve January 25th.
so.
Just want to make sure we have enough people here to
I was
vote
gonna say,
on
there are
this.
enough people that were actually here. Can we check that first before we make a motion?
Okay, there's no state.
We need Joanne.
Okay, so we'll
So
check.
hang on,
Okay, good.
hang on.
Because otherwise
Yeah.
you'd have to
We
wait.
can do, can we do the 15th? Or you haven't given us?
Yeah.
Correct, yeah, that was too quick of a turnaround for me.
Committee member updates, any?
Not doing anything else, right?
No updates from the committee?
We have the Winter Carnival,
Yeah, give us an update.
so I don't know if, did people get the link today?
I sent
I
them
sent
out.
the
yeah.
pictures. I tried to open them. I don't know whether my filters that work. Do you have any? Can you show
Sure,
them to me
sure.
real quick? Yeah.
So
with all the
we
pictures.
estimated 2,000 people attended. Friday night, being a first year event, definitely learned a lot. Would probably eliminate Friday night.
Mhm.
But we had people from Arizona, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, because they were here in our hotels.
Well,
And so we were able to get the surveys done. We put the link online today. And we're doing like a getaway. We're gonna try to do some incentive to get people to fill out the survey. But Saturday was unbelievable. And thankfully to the Nicanello family, they opened up the mini golf and the driving ranges because the crowd was so heavy. Kyle, when you were there was no one there. I mean, Friday night was a bust. It was so cold.
Yeah, it was
We
cold.
probably
Friday.
had a total of 50 people. But it was awesome. The entertainment was fantastic. What I was surprised at, and there's your banner recognizing the economic
Oh,
development
very
community
nice.
Within reach,
within reach. And that was our professional ice skater,
almost there.
cornhole.
Cornhole.
Kids were doing.
Use-
Cotton candy. Yeah. She was one of our performers on Friday night. Elsa.
Elsa.
If you could have seen the faces on the kids when those two princesses were skating, it was absolutely priceless. And hundreds of people were around the skating rink while they were performing, and the little girls were like, that was the thing for us. Like the families just enjoyed it so much.
And the singing that went with the ice.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. That was our fire dancer,
Wow.
fire performer, magician.
Police detail, fire department, nothing.
Didn't need it. No, the s'mores were a big hit. Saturday, we sold out of 250 s'mores packets. Then we went to the store and got marshmallows, and then we ran out of ran out of the sticks. So
Yeah, we did have a stick security.
the petting zoo was huge. The line was so long.
It was so cute.
And then at 4 o'clock on Saturday, it started to snow, which was like so
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
But it cleared everybody out.
Yeah.
They were freezing. But I just really wanted,
The skates, just like, were those the rental skates that came with the ice or?
they came with the ice. So, yeah,
Was it a big hit? Yes.
they sold out.
Okay, that's great.
So that was done, people made the reservations prior to the event through the Yarmouth Recreation Department. And then we had over 50, almost 60 volunteers throughout the weekend.
Oh, that's
And
fantastic.
the Yarmouth Chamber Board, every single one of them was there for more than 2 to 3 shifts over the weekend. So I commend them. We sent a big thank you out to all the
There's the
volunteers.
s'mores.
Yeah.
A couple selected there, right?
Yep, 2 select board, Dan Horgan volunteered 2 shifts, and Tracy Post showed up on Sunday, which was great for them
The
to
health
see.
director.
Yep, Bruce showed up
Bruce showed up?
twice,
Good. No
Friday and
mask.
Saturday.
No mask. Oh, my God.
The food vendors,
Outside.
so it was really a fantastic event. You can see the snow
Oh,
there,
there you go.
and the sun was coming out at the same
Oh,
time.
yeah.
It was spectacular.
I was out in Truro looking at a house and a snow squall came through. It was like,
Blinded,
it was unbelievable. I never saw anything like it.
yeah.
For about 2 minutes, I was like, oh my God.
So thank you very much to this committee for.
There was some
supporting
pieces
that.
of ice out there. I brought it.
Oh, for the skating rink. Yeah, I mean, the skating rink is a real learning curve. But Lisa, our staff member, did a phenomenal job. She built it. She learned how to maintain it.
Oh, great.
And she really got the rhythm going.
Mhm.
So the next time Yarmouth Recreation is able to set it up, she's really got this literally.
When
In
is the
relation to
next,
this room that we're in, how big is the
Yeah,
ice?
Amy. I'm sorry.
In relation to this room that we're in, how big is the ice? I mean, would it
So
fill
it's
this room?
46 feet
Oh.
by 20.
Okay.
Some people
kind
complain
of the
that
size of this.
some people complained that it was too small, but hey, it was a $20,000
I was gonna say,
investment. People don't
Show how much
understand.
it costs, then they'll understand.
But each panel weighs what, times 30 pounds?
Yeah,
So,
4x8 panel.
and you have to mount, like literally physically, but it's a huge amount of work. We have a team of 6 tomorrow that are gonna take it apart and haul it back to,
When's the next time we're using it?
it's up to Amy, it's not the chambers.
Hmm?
so
Oh, it's
The
in
thing
there.
is though.
It's recreation.
Where do they store it?
I'm sorry?
Where do you guys store it?
In
It was
our
on a
basement.
The thing is though, it really was the draw of the carnival.
Can we add to that? Can it be added to?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could, yeah.
That's our intention, is
That
that we
was
can,
always our intention. was
that
it
we
could be
can
added.
hopefully raise money. So I think, so with the fees she charged, it might be a wash because of what she had to pay for staff.
Yeah.
And, but the idea is hopefully over time, we can raise the money to add to it, or who knows, maybe we can find a sponsor.
Mhm.
You know, a $10,000 sponsor would add half more.
Right.
You know, we're talking about doing curling, is that what, curling events? Amy's all into the curling, so.
Very
Hopefully,
cool.
my only point of it, hopefully we use it more than once a year, that's all.
Okay.
I think it was,
Yeah.
I think it was a great event, and I appreciate the chamber doing it, and something to build on.
I can
When it
see
comes
the-
just specific to the ice.
I can see the kids like at Flex Pond.
I was gonna say during the camp, that would be perfect.
Wouldn't
for-
it? Absolutely. So the thing you have to be careful about is like, you know how we talked about, oh, we can do it in 80-degree weather at the beaches. You can't, because you can't take the risk of the sand. It'll ruin it. But if you did it.
But the temperature's fine. It's just the sand. That's the problem.
Exactly. Yeah, you've really got to worry about the debris.
It's synthetic. It's
Synthetic, it's
It's
plastic.
it's plastic.
Oh, it really is?
Yeah, with
I
silicone.
thought you were kidding.
No, they spray it with silicone.
What?
You
All
you know,
right.
if you made this bigger, it might be a problem because then you get all those yahoos zipping around. Right. I mean, bigger ice surfaces just get more speed.
Oh, that's a great.
Little
Yeah.
kids,
It's
families.
got a different texture. We're interested to see over time, once you get the base really on it, how
Professional
fast it would be.
Yeah, I mean,
West
I've seen,
End,
I've seen
right?
hockey played on
Oh,
larger
God, yeah.
synthetic surfaces,
So
especially
you
down
think we
south.
could attract some?
It's, you know, they use them. It's,
I never skated.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
I
different.
mean,
It's
but
totally-
it's,
Professional ice
it's totally
skaters were like-
different, yeah.
But they
yeah.
were able to do their
Were they really?
twist and twirl, yeah.
I know you
But
can't
I,
stop
and she
on
got
them, you
off, I
stop on
said,
ice.
do you like it? And she goes, no,
Yeah.
it's not real ice.
It's not real ice.
Hey, I skated on it. It took a while to get used to. but
Right, it's a little,
For the kids.
but for the
they don't
kids,
know the
they
difference.
loved
Oh
it.
my God.
It's great. No,
So,
appreciate it.
yeah, so we'll have a lot more data for you guys after, but for the first time, it was awesome. So thank you.
Kyle, any staff updates?
A few, yeah. Working on a drive-in site solicitation for this season, trying to make it a little bit smaller, a little shorter than last year, so it's not as daunting when you first look at it, and it's like 7 pages like it was last year. But we have to keep in a lot of the same parameters due to that Article 97 disposition component, that it can't be rented for, exclusively for an extended period of time. So hoping to get that out by the end of this month for like a first application deadline by April 1st. But it's really just going to be on a rolling basis. And I can't imagine that we're going to have unfortunately, I can't imagine we're going to have many event organizers competing for the same date, because we only got one proposal for all of last year, but we made $16,000 from it. So better than
You
nothing.
got one event already.
And we have the Cape Cod Power Festival, as we know, we'll be using that. So, so there's that. I looked into the Destination Development Capital Grant that Maria told us about last, and I talked to Kathy about maybe using it for the Riverwalk Park and Boardwalk. But the problem is on it that there is it says the project needs to be completed by date of June 30th, 2023. So Kathy doesn't think this is a good fit this year for the Riverwalk Park and Boardwalk, because it's not going to be completed by that date, and we're not going to be able
Is there anything
to
else
spend
we
it.
do?
Away from.
Yeah, I don't know. But my point I was trying to make was I'm going to be looking at, I'm going to be attending the webinar. We're thinking about queuing it up for next year for the Riverwalk Park and Boardwalk, because we can make that timeline.
So, but if there's anything on shelf that just requires
Yeah, there's
a dusting off and.
not that I
a little
know of.
extra- Well.
What was the fund?
What
Okay.
is it
Fund
for?
did you refer to from,
So
So it
whatever.
was to supplement infrastructure, but I didn't realize that the Riverwalk was so far out. However, maybe one way around it is, projects that are phased in, so you could say for phase one, completion of X. So I would just go for it. I mean, I hate, I know it's time and effort, et cetera, but if you can carve out, oh yeah, this is done. That would be cool.
Okay, well, like I said, I'm going to be attending a webinar on it soon. So, but
Yeah, and you'll know what questions to ask from it.
Thanks for following up on it.
yeah,
And why do I say that? As a reminder,
Mhm.
I can make phone calls this year. I will probably not be able to make phone calls next year.
Right.
okay. So we're looking at trying to issue the marketing RFP by April 1st. So we're working, I already took the comments from the committee, sent it to Svetlana and procurement.
Okay.
So she's gonna look it over. We're gonna try to get it, we will be getting it out at the latest, April 1st.
Great.
We're
Deadline date by
I think it was May 1st. Yeah.
So can I just ask, when I was watching the meeting, what was the amount of money that was allocated for it? I
It was-
didn't see a vote on
It was 180,000 for marketing for the fiscal year. Whether or not that's all going to be encapsulated in the RFP, I think is to be decided.
It's because there was talk about a 12-month rolling renewal
Right.
up to 36 months. So in total, which would still fall within. the
Yeah, and it's a little
guidelines.
sticky because historically it was 150,000 per
Right.
year, but we did 180,000 last contract because it also included sand sculpture.
Right.
And we also only have 1 year of sand sculpture that this year will include, it's
Right, so I just didn't know if, because I didn't see a vote on that funding amount, so I was just curious.
yeah, well, it was they
Yeah,
allocated
we
allocated 180. We're also talking land disposition. So the next land disposition committee meeting is March 22nd. I actually just gave Steve a memo that I think I've sent to you guys in the past, but we're looking at 6 different town-owned parcels. 2 of them they already reviewed and recommended to retain because they were wellhead protection, I think was the biggest issue, and they're wetlands. They're not really developable sites
Right.
anyways. The one site that they're not going to be talking about the next meeting, but it'll be the meeting after, probably in April, that could be disposed of for economic development purposes is 378 Route 28, which is the parcel across the street from, I think it's
Just
the
up
West
past the
Yarmouth
chamber.
Library, next to Loveland Insurance there. You guys had previously actually funded a fence that went up
Right.
around it. But, that's going to be in phase 1 of the wastewater plan. So, it could be just,
I thought that was a pump station potentially on that site.
I don't think, no, it's not going to be a
Vacant.
pump station.
It's
It's
vacant.
vacant.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they've said, I think the comment from DPW was it could be a side of a future pump station, but it's not currently in the plans to be a side of a future pump station.
The only thing you gotta watch out for is if it could be laid down area for the construction.
Right.
Because it's tough to store pipes and equipment on a corridor like that.
That's a very
So I mean, it doesn't mean you can't sell it and then wait till it's
Right,
done.
right, right.
Mhm.
Can I ask what's happening, if anything, with that parcel between Salties and West Yarmouth Road? Is it just, I know the town owns it, but
Could
and I
you,
didn't know,
Where?
I'll have to look into
right
that.
behind Salties
Oh.
and West Yarmouth Road,
Behind it, the one on the corner, but
at the whole corners.
No, behind it.
There's a little
Okay, good
sliver
work.
that the town owns right behind Salties.
where the.
Maybe
Yeah,
so.
you mean where Shayla Noyes used to be?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that was before my time. But I
Well,
know.
well,
This will
then
save
you
you
just
45
have to-
minutes,
that's-
Where did you say it was?
Yeah.
West Yarmouth?
Yeah.
Never went in.
Yeah.
I was too young.
Well, the
Where-
police
where are
like
we
to
going
hang
here?
out.
Go to satellite.
It's the end of West Yarmouth Road.
No, so
I know you are.
I think if I can just,
I'm sorry.
I think because it could trigger a Cape Cod commission is maybe somebody's waiting to purchase it on another date, but I was just curious.
Giant-
Purchase for the pump station.
No.
I know the one you're talking about.
So the inflatable park has now owns the
On
corner
Salt,
of
that's
the,
right.
but it also owns the corner of West Yarmouth. And there's a little sliver,
No, I didn't realize that
In
he
there.
bought that. That was
there's a little sliver.
that was
the town
Surgeon's
still-
property, the one on
He
the corner.
owns that.
Are you talking about
That,
Yes,
this parcel?
Yep.
I'll look into that. I'm sure there's an answer.
yeah.
As
So
to what's-
I am sure that Joe would be interested in that.
That was the pump station.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. That there was a planned pump station on that parcel. That's where they bought it.
Just curious.
I'll look into that for you.
Can you slide, since you got this, can you slide down 28 and show us that 373 parcel?
Yeah.
Here it is.
So that's the whole.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's our fence.
Ah,
Looks good.
That was the one next to camp.
isn't it the park that
Put it to use.
Karen's working on?
Next to Campo, too. It's their property. So,
Here's one piece of property. Just
Yeah, I know. Well.
the town, didn't the town purchase the property across the street from the South Yarmouth Library on? I don't know, what's that road? that you-
Eventually,
There is a town-owned parcel That's one of them that's gonna be reviewed. 215 Mill Lane, I think it is. Is that what?
I mean, no offense, but the town ought to do something with it. We can get rid of it because.
Is that the one you're talking about?
There's the old Bassford Fish Market and all those businesses back there.
Wasn't Witten interested in that?
Yeah, he wants to buy it. He uses it now for parking
I know.
anyway.
Well,
So,
and so does the cultural center.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be town parking lot.
No.
That's what I'm getting at, Ken.
That
We
lot,
should be-
right.
oh, that stuff, right?
Witten
No,
wanted-
I don't disagree.
Witten
I mean, if the town owns it and we're not doing it,
No.
we gotta just sell it.
No,
No, what?
no, it should be, it really needs to.
Well, that's
The
the kind
park
of stuff that
trucks?
needs to be.
No, no,
Different.
he wanted to develop it.
Actually, it should be the future home of the new library and keep the other one.
But see, if
That's
we
tiny
can
lot,
control the use of that.
Yeah, it's not that big.
So anyway,
That's on the list. That's gonna be reviewed, I think, at the very next meeting, actually.
They're actually.
But
hear
you,
stuff
I
don't
mean, like,
believe.
I send out comments
Yeah.
and there's always, all the committees want to retain, or all the departments for the most part say retain, if there's the slightest reason to retain it, they say we want to retain it for X. And then the land disposition committee usually
Right.
is amenable to that. One of the people on the list, like land disposition committee is a wide range. So we have somebody from the open space committee on the land disposition committee.
Yep.
So they don't want to get rid of anything, so.
This is a great.
I mean, you can see on that, just that Google Earth view, see the dirt right there, that's where
Yeah.
the trucks drive in.
No, I know. That's why I was the one to put together this list. I agree with you. I pulled this one out. And I thought this was a good one for disposition too,
Yeah.
but then you get the comments.
Maybe raise this thing about, say, no, we want this for development.
Well, what
Someone's gonna have to make a
shouldn't,
decision.
well, shouldn't this RFP that we're issuing, gotta give us tee up exactly what the strategic businesses that we should be attracting? I mean,
Yeah.
both the marketing plan and this, and the visioning statement seems to me, A lot- well, yeah, and then get rid of.
I think that's above our pay grade,
No,
so.
we can do both of them. We can do both. Know that.
Yeah,
We almost did.
almost did. Anything else, Kyle?
That's it.
All right.
Oh, and just the next meeting when you guys want to do that.
Well, don't we just had it down
Yeah, do you
for
want to do
20?
March 20th? I just suggested March
Yeah, I'm good
22nd,
with
but
22nd. You, Steve? As I remind everybody, the discussion, one of the big discussions is community reorganization, and that's, and the reason that's on there, it was put on there with a grandfather clause a year ago when I came on as chair when Peter stepped off. I had said that, I had been vice chair for 5 or 6 years. I said I would do it for a year. I felt personally best for the committee that, and this isn't meant as a knock on Peter or anything, I just thought we'd have a little more diversification if we spread the chair around. And I said I'd do it for a year. Steve was already vice chair, that he had wanted to be chair in a year, so I said, God bless. The one thing that it will trigger though is that we're gonna need a vice chair, because it makes no sense for me to step down and be vice chair. So just keeping that in mind as discussion on the 22nd.
during that discussion too, we should probably also assign the RFP committee
That's
too
right.
for the marketing contract.
Yep.
Can I also ask, so I know on
And I
March
did say
1st,
that I volunteered for that, so, the RFP committee.
Yeah.
so on March 1st, the CEDC is presenting to the.
Yeah, and I
We
actually,
still haven't officially been told about that. Maybe you
Yeah.
can expand
Bill, do you know?
on that.
That's what I heard.
Is there a
that's what you heard.
presentation?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess my question is what are we?
Well, I
presenting?
think the main topic was supposed to be the tourism revenue preservation town meeting article.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be what you guys are presenting, your recommended allocation and whatnot.
Okay,
So I've been drafting up a memo that's going to be sent to the MLCC, you guys.
okay.
That
Could I
will,
see it before? it goes
yeah,
to-
yeah,
please?
So that's the gist of the conversation with the select board. Okay.
Yeah.
Are we all gonna be there?
You and I definitely, and I think anybody who wants to be there is
Give
invited.
it this
Certainly, what's
in
the
word, so
date?
you
It's next-
can
it's a
steal
week
it
from today.
if you want to add it to that number.
Are we 4 weeks
I
already?
actually already wrote the memo, but
All right.
And
But
then
you can send it.
also on
So
March
this-
16th,
Couldn't find your
the
way
planning
finding
board is
design.
doing a hearing.
yeah.
And many of you know
All you
the
gotta do is
chamber
steal a
has
scope
been
for some
very
consultant.
involved in putting a
It's not a hard
proposal
thing.
together for the
Yeah, you're
seasonal
probably
workforce
looking at-
housing.
That level.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
This is a bigger issue than what we can address this year. Excuse me. But we are definitely need to address this issue on a long-term basis. sorry.
Let's
Go for it.
drink some water.
I was gonna say,
I ran out, but,
There's water right next to
you know, even for
Other side.
this particular season, some businesses are short 150 days. And so we need to figure out what we can do with the zoning or the bylaws to help these businesses.
So
rent a
to,
cruise ship and.
I know, we
Park,
talked
yeah,
about
park in the
this.
harbor building.
yeah, to Mary's point, these companies bring 150 people from crew from Florida or other places, and they're all professional staff.
Right.
So that's on top of the visas. So the people that come in by visa. So
And I can touch a little bit on that too, you know, being a former employer of Red Jacket Resorts and now working over at Thurwood Place. As we all know, there isn't enough local workforce to staff the businesses, especially when all the seasonals wrap up. And the J1 program, which is something that this town relied upon, businesses within this town relied upon, has dried up. So now we're bringing either H-2Bs in from all over the country on H-2B visas, or what I call professional companies that actually have hospitality workers, landscapers, et cetera, from other parts of the country. There's no place to house.
Literally.
And
no.
the cost to house last year, and I wasn't even working for them, I know what they spent. The cost to staff 50 Red Jacket Resort employees last year was over 6 figures. To have them here
For 4
avail-
months.
for 4 months was over 6 figures.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And our bylaws are so restrictive, there's no solution for them, absolutely no solution. And even by, you know, this 15% cap that we still have on it, and we're going before town meeting on, if we could eliminate that 15%, it would really help, but I don't see how we could do that. There would be an uproar
Yeah,
from
that-
the
I mean, you got-
citizens, but
The
that's what is restricting them right now.
Well,
And
public,
we have-
public safety and the citizens again.
Well,
That's
but I
those two things
But I
are
also want
certainly
to
restricted.
I also want to say, if we look at what like Dennis is doing, right, it's a perfect model. And we have hotel rooms in this
What are
town
they
that do not fill in the peak season.
Using,
they use an
Hotels,
entire
yeah.
hotel complex, and a nonprofit runs it to house people that work at Dennis. So
You know, we have to look at other models and really work hard over the next several months to be able to bring something to town meeting to
And
change it.
to the point, we're going out and trying to attract business to increase our base, right? We really need to address, wherever this consultant is, needs to address the barriers, and sometimes we
Well,
need.
it's a bigger issue than workforce housing. It's an issue
Housing
within Cape
overall.
Cod. It's an issue within Cape Cod. Cape Cod, no offense, is becoming Nantucket light. I mean, it really is.
I know.
The housing prices are going up so
And
high.
yet, one
Rents are
thing that we
falling.
could do is that we could, I don't know, we could have to lobby the legislature, but we could ease up on the child labor, because like no kid under like 16 can get near a stove or anything anymore. So, I mean, really, quite honestly, we're depriving our children of a work experience in order to become better human beings and better citizens. So to that extent, that's my soapbox, but I think that's one of the things that we could chip at, and the legislature.
But there
should
should have been an
recognize.
exemption from 14 to 17. You can't pay someone 14, at 14, 15.
15, exactly. Exactly.
So-
And workers' comp on top of it, and I had that
it's a pretty
conversation.
good dishwasher at 14.
Yeah, me
So
too.
if I can.
Yes, you can't, yeah, I don't think,
$8.
and you can't do that anymore
It's
because
more
laws
like
are
four-
high.
For you.
It's
I was
more
paying
like
$1.75.
So
$4.50.
so if I can just say on March 16th, the public hearing is being held about the seasonal workforce housing and the short-term rentals. So I think it would be important that some of the economic development.
What's the
members
short-term
are there.
rental piece of it?
So I don't understand the whole
You're
piece
gonna
that
get-
they're putting in.
Make
place.
it
They
legal
wanna-
in the zoning bylaws so that we can
Correct.
keep the finances coming. Because right now it's not by, if it's not in the zoning bylaw, it's not.
There was another town that didn't have it in their zoning bylaw. They got challenged, and it was a huge problem. So
And
it was a
also on
preventative
16
measure.
If I can add, Robert C. Viola is going to have his public hearing on 17th very out.
Okay.
So do you guys still want to stick with seasonal housing as the main topic of your next meeting on the 22nd?
He's having a
Oh,
public
he's having.
hearing.
Up to you guys.
Well, it'll be after that meeting, though, right? Certainly, I don't have a problem discussing it.
Yeah, I
but
think,
No, I don't know if it'd be, it's up to you if you.
no, I think Mayor's point, you need to, there's no one solution
No,
to this. It's a complex issue, as you all know better than I do, but we need to take a multifaceted approach. So I think if we can talk about it, maybe give her some feedback on what are the range of options that are before us that we can help out with.
I think you should talk to the nonprofit that did it at Dennis and invite them in here and see how they did it. Because frankly, the issue is not trying to fit them into all these sites. It's create a site and get it over with.
Right.
I
And
mean,
that all the businesses can benefit from.
I know the people who run the Pelham House. I know how they did. They basically run it like a college dorm.
Right.
They have RAs that, they watch over it. And I know the properties that they use for
That's where they
housing.
do it.
And the
Pelham House.
scattered,
Yeah,
I
it's a
think,
nice
I think
place.
there's been a concern that the scattered site at motels, how do you manage that as a motel or a hotel owner?
Right.
But this singular site is managed by a
Right.
company and it has rules.
Yeah.
And so it's getting to be a cost that it's cost is
We can
getting.
have them, Dennis, representatives from the town.
So we've been talking about having them come in and talk to the community partnership. So maybe we can start there and then bring them back, since some of you are on the partnership.
And being such a big issue, Cape Cod College, community college.
Right, that's tough.
It's a great parcel. It's been brought up before, and yet no one keeps on, because as Ken said, it's not just our town.
And I think the Cape Cod Chamber is already in discussion with them.
Yeah, when I was on the Cape Cod Chamber Board, we had discussions with the college. There's a company, I wish I could remember the name of it. I want to say Black Duck, but that's not it. They're out of South Carolina. They actually, their business model is to go around to underserved areas of the country. And some of them would be like, really? But Telluride, Colorado, for example, you think about it, it's the same problem we have. The housing market is so expensive that nobody can afford. So they actually go in and physically build dormitory style workforce housing. And the 21-year-olds right out of college and don't mind living like that because they're used to it from college and want to get some job experience, they flock right to that stuff. But you have to have the commitment of the public to say, yep, we need it and we want it. If they don't, it's never going to survive.
But and the residents have to realize that businesses won't be open this summer because they won't have the staffing because we don't have the housing for them.
But I think the issue has always been that let's put 5 people in this hotel as part, and then I think the residents are more concerned that it's all over the place and it's unregulated.
Right.
That maybe we look at it from a perspective of, let's get a company in here to construct it, and then you write the zoning around that instead of writing the zoning. So, because if we can get that kind of company in here, maybe it's an RFP and it's some property that we own.
I'll reach out to Wendy Northcross because she'll remember the name of the company, at least gets information on it that we can bring to the table.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's all.
Even if you do it as a pilot, sometimes it's okay, and put a termination date on it, and then it could be renewed.
And they recognize, this company recognized 3 spots on the Cape that would be ideal. One being Mass Maritime, which some people say is not the Cape, but it is.
Yeah.
The other one being
They have dorm, and they
Right.
don't.
that Cape Cod Community College. But that's a whole state thing too, because community colleges can't have dorms, so it'd have to be totally re-regulated.
Well, they need to be involved.
And exactly. And then the last one, believe it or not, at the time was the Cape Cod Mall. They really thought that site would be an ideal site because of the central location, public transportation, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of these internal sticks and brick stores have been, I still remember the meeting I was at it. It was showing that we're being converted into dormitory style housing because it's a natural transition. When Sears are going out, what goes in is a dorm in that location.
Wonder if that's a good mass development study.
There you go.
I mean, that they could start, this is all over the Cape, that'd be a pretty big win for them.
Absolutely.
Maybe we're the ones that spearhead it,
What is the
right?
model
Yeah,
for?
so to that, yes, but however, so with that being said, to bring on community partners like have Barnstable, have a number of these town administrators sign on, or even the selectmen. But I can certainly,
We don't want to go too late.
I know, we've been talking about this forever and a day, and yet it comes down to where, right?
Mhm.
And
I mean, I know for a fact, that's why, like I said, tomorrow, my first call in the morning will be to Wendy. Like I said, I cannot remember the name of the company. But they had actually done some preliminary research. And it was, they, out of their own pocket, had paid and done a whole
Because I
proposal.
wanted
Right.
to create it come in.
Too bad we didn't listen to them.
Well, they never went past the Cape Cod Chamber Board because they couldn't get public support behind it. That was the
I
issue.
think that's overcome by, if you can get a private group that maintains it and operates it.
Yeah, that was this company's business model. I mean,
Right,
They
and
didn't
then-
come in and build it and walk away. They built them and ran them. And they had like the number like 23 different sites from the West Coast to the East Coast. And they were a huge company.
Yeah, I mean, if you did an economic analysis showing the continued decline of businesses because they can't get labor.
Yeah.
And then we're spending $162 million for sewer,
Mhm.
you know, then you start talking about scattered site is not the way to go. It's put in one site. I think residents would look at that more favorably because they know that not every hotel has, you know, 10 rooms of housing, you know, people are living
And
there.
if we came up with a scholarship, so for every, like almost all the graduates at DY said, you know what? You sign up, you get this bonus in order, if you come and work for Yarmouth business.
Yep.
We stamp you in, we teach you some soft skills. Work at 8:30, show up at 8:30, things like that. But, yeah, it's a whole,
The whole nother problem.
well, but I mean, the schools should be really, I mean, in terms of engagement, right? But it's past 6, so
Yeah, thank you.
I
How
want
about-
motion to adjourn.
There you go.
There we go.
That's awesome.
She's getting from me, I thought you were gonna say
All right, here's
Cavalier.
my,
Oh, wait.
I'd like to-
Yeah, no, I want to come in. I
Yeah,
used
you
to be
can
a
do.
member.
That's what it's all